The Fresh and Fit podcast is one of the worst podcasts on YouTube. If you actively follow this podcast and listen to the advice the hosts Walter and Myron give out, then you are not just cooked, you're absolutely deep fried. These people make their money by bullying random 20-year-old women for making poor life choices on their hideous excuse of a podcast. Now, normally, they either talk down to women on their podcast or they're talking to people who already agree with them. However, today I'm gonna show you what happens when one of them actually tries to argue in an unfamiliar environment against somewhat reasonable people. And spoiler alert, it did not go well. But before we get into it, I just want to quickly say thank you so much for the support recently. If you enjoy my content and you're excited for future uploads, then please like the video. It really helps me out, and subscribe because I'm trying to hit 850 subs this month and we are incredibly close. Anyway, back to the video. Alright, so most of you are probably familiar with the channel Jubilee. It's one of the biggest mainstream corporate YouTube channels. They are especially well known for hosting the show Odd One Out, which gained a lot of popularity in the past couple of years and even led to some YouTubers copying the show. Now, another content format they created is Middle Ground, where they get 6 to 8 people of opposing sides in a room and try to get them to find some common ground they can all agree on. And for some reason they made an episode on fit people versus fat people, which is not really a political issue, so it's kind of missing the point of the show. But anyway, they decided to invite Myron, whose nickname is unironically Fit by the way, onto the show, and yeah, let's just say he definitely was not on there to reach common ground. He absolutely for sure just wanted to force everyone to comply with his opinion. But hey, I'm all for free speech, so I'm glad he went on there to share his opinion, because it makes me able to be here as well and express my opinion on why he's completely wrong about pretty much everything he's saying here.
In general, being fat is unacceptable because you control every single morsel of food that goes into your mouth.
Okay.
It shows a lack of discipline, it shows a lack of character, it shows a lack of temperance, and when you're fat, it's an outward manifestation of your inadequacies.
Alright, okay, so that is a pretty strong statement to start off this discussion. Like, goddamn, Myron does not hold back at all, and I do think that he definitely chooses to act this way on purpose, because these fresh and fit guys are the kind of people that go off on insane rants during their podcast in order to get that one viral clip for TikTok. So I think he's purposely arguing in a more provocative way in order to maybe get a viral TikTok with maybe even someone of the other side flipping out. But I'm not gonna engage with the silliness here. I'm just here to point out why he's definitely wrong. Now, in general, I would of course agree that being fit is more desirable than being fat. That's why I work out, because being obese would probably make me an extremely unhappy person and limit the activities and hobbies I could pursue. But on the other side, if someone is obese, I don't always necessarily agree that it's 100% their own fault. For instance, if you grow up in a household with 2 morbidly obese parents who feed you multiple 1,500 calorie meals a day and don't sign you up for any athletic clubs when you're young, is it then really your fault if you end up being morbidly obese? I mean, if you then stay obese throughout your entire adulthood, then it is definitely your own fault. But even still, there are some adults that might become overweight because they, for instance, immigrated and were only able to afford a low-paying job at McDonald's, where they then ate the McDonald's employee meal every day in order to save up on groceries. Would becoming overweight then really be 100% the own fault of that person? Like, in some way, I think you're definitely affected by your environment, and I'm pointing that out not because I'm just some sort of body positivity, fat acceptance idiot, but instead because I want to showcase that obesity is not as black and white of a subject as Myron would like you to believe, because everyone's struggle is definitely different.
Unfortunately, some people have emotional stuff that happened, traumatic stuff that's happened, so you can't discount and just say, oh, because they're fat.
Boo-hoo, man. Like, there's way worse stuff going out in the world versus people saying, oh my God, I'm sad, I'm gonna eat some ice cream. It's like, no, dude, it's like, you're fat, you made that decision, you live in the best country ever. If you live in a civilized first world country where you have electricity, internet power, etc., you deserve to be bullied.
I like that he just says boohoo man like 2 minutes into the conversation. This guy does not realize that the whole point of the show is trying to find common ground with people. Now obviously Myron immediately jumped to comparing America's obesity crisis with the war going on between Israel and Gaza, which are two completely incomparable things. Like, I obviously agree that the guy who's addicted to ice cream living in Ohio obviously has it better than the dude whose house is getting bombed in the Middle East, but I'm still not gonna invalidate the other person's struggle. I know that I can't really relate to someone that's like addicted to Burger King and weighs 350 pounds, but at the same time, I'm not gonna bully them for it. Like, I'm not just gonna be like, oh, you fat retard, go lose weight. Don't you see that there are people living in war zones? Like, those are two things that are absolutely not comparable to me at all. Like, these are completely separate issues. I mean, you can't deny that there is currently an obesity crisis in the US. I agree that if there was, for instance, a war on US soil going on currently, that tackling the obesity pandemic would be lower on the list of priorities. But since the US is a relatively stable Western country at the moment, the largest issues just happen to be healthcare, policing, and obesity. And at the end of the day, these are all still problems, so it makes sense to try and act against them while there is nothing truly awful like a war happening at the same time.
We need to bring shaming back in so many other regards besides obesity. We need to do it with sluts. We need to shame fat people. We need to shame everybody when they fuck up. Because shame has been one of the strongest defenses against degeneracy and human fuck-ups.
See, this is a direct result of the closeted world full of yes men Myron from the Fashion Fit podcast lives in. This guy honestly believes that shaming people for being fat will lead to them getting motivated to go and lose that weight, and he thinks that probably because he has seen it happen once or twice. But here's the problem. I think this could work maybe with like 1 out of 10 people, but the underlying issue here is that not every human is wired that way. If I go and walk up to an overweight person and make fun of them for their weight, yeah, maybe they'll get so mad that they'll try to prove me wrong by losing the weight, or they might just be fucking broken by people walking up to them shaming them every day that they actually just might get depressed and eat even more, or they will get shamed and then join a body acceptance community to counter the shaming, leading to them never getting in shape. Honestly, I don't think shaming works with the vast majority of people because everyone has different motivations. Me, for instance, if I see a morbidly obese person like Boogie, that motivates me to go even harder during my workouts and eat less because I'm thinking, wow, I never want to end up like that guy. Now on the other side, someone else might see a positive role model like David Goggins, for instance, and think like, oh wow, this guy's awesome, he's inspiring me to put in the work to get better. Or for someone else it might be the competition aspect or a deadline aspect that might get them to stay in shape or alternatively lose weight. The point being that humans are wired differently and everyone has a different source for motivation, and I firmly believe that shaming or bullying people in order to try and get them to work harder to prove you wrong is not gonna work like 9 out of 10 times. And by the way, I just want to mention that I don't care if you're obese, normal weight, underweight, I really don't. You can keep living your life as you wish. I don't want to speak as an authority dictating people's life choices. All I want to do here with this video is show everyone that Myron from the Fresh and Fit podcast, who does try to speak as an authority, is completely wrong in his arguments.
I did an experiment back in like 2015 where I like bulked for like almost 2 years and I got up to like 250 pounds, and then I dieted down. It took me about 7 months. I systematically did it, controlled my calories, tracked my macros, tracked my protein, carbs, fats, and systematically lost 1 to 2 pounds per week.
So you chose to gain up to 250.
Yeah,
you were
so
naturally
I've been in all
beforehand.
spectrums. Like I'm naturally skinny.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna get fat as an experiment.
Yeah.
Did it, and then I was like, all right, now I'm gonna lose the weight.
If this is true, this guy is a psychopath. Like, who just randomly decides to get fat as an experiment? I feel like that is an outright insane thing to do for no reason. I could at the very least understand if he did it for like a viral YouTube video or something, but this guy started YouTube in 2020 and he's saying he just did this in 2015, meaning that there was absolutely no reason for him to attempt this at all. Like, that seems completely unhinged to me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have never heard of like an average person purposely gaining huge amounts of weight for no reason and then losing it all as an experiment. Like, maybe if we did it for like a scientific experiment or as a personal trainer in order to relate to what it's like being overweight, I could at the very least comprehend it, especially with the personal trainer thing, because that actually makes a lot of sense, but doing it for literally no reason at all, I don't get that in the slightest. Like, what did you learn by doing this? Oh, if I eat a lot of food, I gain weight. If I stop eating, I lose it again. Yeah, great experiment results. Who could have predicted that one?
I'm not gonna go ahead and give the same level of respect to someone who's a fat ass to someone that has worked really hard and diligently on their physique, because your body's outward manifestations
There's
of
more
your decisions,
factors to
your
a human
consistency.
being than their body.
Well, you could judge a lot just off of someone's physique. You'd be like, okay, well, this guy is lazy.
Again, this is another point that I heavily disagree with. How can you sit here and say that you automatically respect every overweight person less than an average sized person? Now, for instance, Gabriel Iglesias is one of my favorite people on the internet. I definitely respect him and his stand-up comedy way more than I would ever respect Myron or anyone in his sphere of influence. Just because someone is overweight doesn't mean they can't achieve great things. Broadway, for example, I mess with his music heavily and I would never even think of not giving his albums a listen just because he's overweight. Like, just because someone happens to be a little bit thicker, that doesn't mean that they're incapable of achieving greatness and being well respected by the general public. If someone came out with the cure for cancer tomorrow and they happen to be overweight because they spent all day working on the cure relentlessly and then finished every day off by eating 3,000 calories worth of McDonald's for time reasons afterwards, would you then really go as far as to say that that person is lazy and should not be respected? Like, how can you say you respect that person less than, for instance, a normal weight homeless person? Like, I get that maybe I'm going a bit far with my comparisons here, but I'm just trying to point out that generalizing people like Myron is doing here is absolutely nonsensical, because every person is different and unique, except for Myron himself, since he's obviously just a clone of Andrew Tate.
Because a lot of guys think this way, oh, I just be a nice guy and girls are gonna like me. No, they're not. She's not gonna suck your dick with the same veracity when you're a fat f*** as when you're in shape. She's just not.
This is what I mean by saying that this guy states outrageous opinions on purpose in order to get that one viral TikTok clip, because that is an absolutely completely untrue and demeaning thing to say. It's completely hilarious that he thinks that this actually might be a respectable thing to say. Firstly, how does no one give Myron pushback on this? Like, come on, the other side here is really letting me down, but to be fair, they might just be flabbergasted that this guy is sitting here with his stupid Fresh and Fit podcast t-shirt, spitting out these garbage delusional takes. And secondly, are you speaking from experience? Like, what do you mean? Did you get with the same woman while you were overweight and in shape to try it out for yourself? Like, I don't get how anyone could possibly reach this conclusion. Now, obviously, women are not just attracted to physical attributes. I feel like anyone that has ever had a conversation with an actual woman that's not an OnlyFans model in Miami would know this. Like, I do concede that if you're some fat Discord mod Mr. Nice Guy, you will probably not attract a lot of women that genuinely like you, but at the same time, if you're some jacked up sub 50 IQ testo bro, I don't think you will get liked by a lot of women either. I personally believe that regardless of how you look, as long as you don't look like Boogie, how much a person likes you usually depends on how you treat them and how well you can connect with them. But hey, that's just my opinion. I'm sure the guy that spends most of his day demeaning women on the internet knows better.
Well, I mean, I've talked to almost 3,000 women, and what I've come to realize from talking to all of them is that most of the time, you know, when they're in a comment section of TikTok, like, you're so handsome, blah, 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 will they actually go on a date and have sex with that guy? Probably not. But they say that because it's politically correct.
I find it so funny that this guy is just like, yeah, I've talked to 3,000 women. Like, do you keep count? I could not at all tell you how many women I have talked to in my life. What psychopath even loosely keeps count? That seems incredibly insane to me. Like, at first I was gonna say he's over exaggerating here, but counting the number of women I have talked to in my life is something that has never even crossed my mind, to the point of me not even knowing whether that number could be accurate or not. Like, right now I'm just feeling like this guy listening to Myron talk.
I think when fat people look at the mirror and they say, oh, I like that, that's coat, man. No, you don't. They say that to try to bring themselves up, but the reality is most of the time when you're fat, you look in the mirror, you're like, damn, I really let myself go.
This is something that I would somewhat agree with maybe, but also not really. Like, on a human to human level, when I see an overweight person, I don't think they are comfortable with the way they look. I do believe that most overweight people would prefer to be skinny, but at the same time I can't look into people's mind. So maybe some people could be satisfied with an obese body. For me personally, as long as you're not Boogie or Nicholas the Oreo obese, where your weight has a massive impact on your health and will lead to you dying an earlier death, have, I really don't care about other people's weight. Like if you're muda or overweight, for example, like just a little bit out of shape, then I see absolutely no problem with that. Just keep on living your life and I'll keep living mine as long as we're both happy, which is probably my main takeaway as a regular person. Just let people live, because I think that on one side, people that shame fat people and aggressively want them to become fit are idiots, and on the other side, body positivity influencers that promote a morbidly obese lifestyle are idiots too. Like, just let people live, man. If instead of shaming people, Myron would just post content of him working out and making gains, he could probably inspire a lot more people than through what he's doing now. Like, obviously, I'm not gonna be completely absent from the conversation. Like, if an overweight friend came to me and asked for help with their fitness journey, I would of course try to help, but in general, I just think that I shouldn't force my body ideals onto other people.
The body positivity movement is a huge psyop to keep us fatter and stupider. It's all a scam. The reality is that Big Pharma wants money, and they understand that when you're fat, you have more health problems. They understand that you're going to need insulin, you're going to need medication, etc. And they make a bunch of money on us being sick. There is no incentive to actually have you be healthy. So let's go ahead and make our people fat as hell, get them in the hospitals, get them on medication, continue to make money, etc. It's all a big psyop.
Now, I think that this is the dumbest take that I have heard throughout the video. Well, the dumbest one yet. Myron is essentially saying that the American government wants their citizens to become fat and unhealthy so that they get more health problems and have to spend more money on treatment, which will enrich the government even further. And how do you think the government is doing this? How is the government promoting obesity? Like, he never states how they're doing it. He's just saying, oh, they're doing it. The last time I checked, no American politician was out here telling people to get fat. The last time I checked, it was anyone's personal choice whether they want to eat healthy or eat McDonald's every day. It is your choice what you eat. It is your choice whether or not you exercise or play League of Legends every day. It is completely your own decision. The government is not forcing obesity onto anyone. Throughout the past couple of decades, politicians have consistently argued for better and healthier food in school canteens, for example. So how are you gonna make the argument that the government wants you to be fat? If the government wants the people to be fat, why are there, for instance, high fitness standards in the army or navy? That doesn't make any sense. If the government actually wanted people to be fat, then they are terrible at enforcing it.
I mean, if I was president, hell, I'd put all of them in a fat concentration camp so they can concentrate on dieting and exercising, because being fat is completely not acceptable. I'd have these people back in shape, because what people don't also understand is that fat people bring a big burden on the healthcare system.
Okay, so this is where I lost all faith that this episode of the show was gonna go anywhere. Because it's impossible to reach common ground with someone that genuinely wants to put fat people into a concentration camp, a literal gulag. That is not at all humane, and also it would definitely go against the core values of American freedom. Like, at the end of the day, the freedom of living in a country like the US allows people to be fat. I mean, if I was put into a concentration camp, if I ever got really fat, like in that one Black Mirror episode, that would inherently be an offense on my freedom. And also, I can guarantee you that Myron never once considered that putting every fat person into a concentration camp would like literally destroy the entire US economy. Like, you are literally taking every fourth American out of their job and putting them into a concentration camp. Do you realize that a lot of businesses would have to shut down or would collapse completely, and everyone would be overwhelmed because he just suddenly locked up like 20% of the population? At the end of the day, I think he's just saying this for shock value and it's not to be taken seriously. So I don't feel like the conversation on Jubilee reached any sort of common ground. Myron was definitely just trying to force everybody else to agree with his stance, which obviously didn't work. I think everyone in the room collectively agreed that Myron is just insane. Like, he didn't really even make one solid point during the whole 1 hour 20 conversation. So yeah, Myron is definitely an idiot. And yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you around.